I welcome everyone for this webinar, which is Crack the GRE, Smart Strategies for 320 plus. Well, is 320 a magical number? Okay, guys think. Now, my name is Ramkumar and I've got almost 18 years of test prep industry experience. I've taken the GRE a couple of times. And currently I'm working for IMS Manya, the Princeton Review, as a test prep expert. All right. Now, I told you guys to think of, is 320 a magical number? Well, if you ask me, not really, okay? Because some of you can really improve your score to up to 330 or even more than 330. So again, it's just a number, okay? Not a magical number. At the same time, do I really have to get a 320 to get into some top colleges? Absolutely not, okay? You can even score a little less, maybe a 314 or 315. Still, you can get, yourself admitted into, good colleges. So before we actually get into the smart strategies, let's look at how can I, as a test taker, I can interpret my GRE score. That's the first and foremost thing that we are going to look at. Okay. Now, I'm sure most of you would have seen or would have heard about the percentile scores of GRE. Okay, so ATS, who is the maker of GRE, has released recently the percentile scores. So I'm just displaying it on the screen. So I've taken a cutoff from 150 onwards. So if you guys look at, the 170, that perfect score, okay? When it comes to verbal reasoning, it is a 99th percentile. Whereas if you look at the quant, it is just the 91st percentile. So which means out of 100 test takers, 9 of them are scoring the perfect score in quant. Okay, this is the understanding of the percentile. So we're going to do a little bit of that calculation of 320. So suppose, if I'm aiming for a 320, probably I can hit a perfect score in quant, and maybe I should just cross the 150 barrier on verbal, so that combined, you should be able to comfortably get a 320. Okay, now let's look at STEM specific and other areas. Okay, so if I'm looking for a STEM specific, for example, I'm looking for STEM programs. So which means, do you think you're expected to score high in verbal and maybe a moderate score in quant? Absolutely not. Okay, the higher math score is the key for admission into any STEM program, in the university. So in fact, I'm going to share a table on the top right side. I'm sure you're able to see it. So I've just categorized to 3 levels. You can see that top tier, which includes the MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, UC Berkeley. So they admit students with a quant score of 166 and above, or you can see above 165. Okay. Now, if you look at the upper mid tier, okay, so you can see Georgia Tech and the other universities, which, they're okay to, up to 167. All right. Similarly, if you look at the mid tier, so they look for around a range of 162 to 166. So these are primarily programs, as I said, STEM program, okay? So computer science, data science, engineering, okay? So these colleges look for, I would say, an average quant score. So if you look at the heading, I did not put minimum quant score. It's an average accepted quant score in these universities, okay? All right. Now, I was talking about, okay, what if I'm applying for a arts and humanities area? So over there, it's just the, other way. So on the other hand, if you are applying for arts and humanities, then 320 doesn't actually matter. So what matters all about is your verbal score. So primarily, your verbal score is expected to be somewhere around 156 to 157 for arts and humanities. And for English history, it's about the same range. But for philosophy, they expect a 160. So, in addition to your verbal score, a minimum score of 4.5 in AWA is also expected for these arts and humanities background. Is that clear? So here, the 320 doesn't matter because you have to show yourself you have the proficiency in English language, of course, the verbal section of the GRE. That matters a lot. So for an arts and humanities background, math plays a very, very, least role in terms of the overall score. So always, look at the percentile scores, okay, and look at the college websites where they would have mentioned a minimum, a verbal score for this particular program. Okay, so you not only look at the college average, you should look at the program average as well. That's very, very important. All right. Okay, now um, let's now, okay, so now that we have sort of understood, okay, what is expected with respect to the STEM program, what is expected with respect to the arts and humanities, let's just step into, okay, fine. I know that, quant and verbal, play significant role in various, programs. Now, what are the sections does GRE actually test? What does GRE test? So GRE tests an AWA section, which is analytical writing assessment section, a quant section, and a verbal section. So AWA is nothing but you will be given an issue essay. So AWA assesses critical thinking, analytical writing skills, and the capacity to construct and articulate a clear argument with supporting evidence. Now, when it comes to quant, just the high school math. Okay. So this is designed to assess your fundamental math skills and your ability to apply them in a real life problem. All right. Rather than testing advanced math knowledge. So there is no trigonometry or no calculus in GRE. So it is very important that you prepare when you're preparing for GRE, you know the syllabus well. You don't have to prepare math from integration, differentiation, all that is not required. All right. Now the third section is a verbal section. So now the ETS, the makers of GRE, the maker of GRE, I mean, they claim that GRE verbal section aims to gauge the overall reading comprehension and analytical skills, which are crucial for success in graduate level studies. Of course, very well the GRE verbal section, I would say, is divided into two, halves. One half is completely vocabulary based, the other half is the reading. So, of course, when you are starting the program or the classes abroad, obviously, you have to have an understanding of what people are, speaking, the kind of, the language and the terms that they use. It is very important to have a strong vocabulary. Okay. Anyway, we'll just get into that slightly a little later. Now, okay. Now we know that GRE tests on three different areas. One is the AWA, the quant, and the verbal. Now, if you ask me, what does GRE really test? I mean, it's just that how well you take the GRE. That's it. I don't think apart from that, it is used as a measuring scale for admissions into colleges. Okay. So beyond that, as I said, yes, a little bit of, focus preparation, all that is required here. Okay, now, how important is the GRE score? This is a very, very important, point to just think, because I'm sure there is a COVID era and a post-COVID era. So during the COVID, I'm sure most of the colleges, you all know that uh, the GRE, the other test prep, GMAT and SAT, they were all like, given a waiver. Every university waived off these tests. All right. Now, um, now let's come to the post-COVID era. Most of those colleges now they have started reinstating the, GRE scores. So they expect students to come with GRE, scores. Okay, so obviously a strong GRE score plays a significant role in the selection process and can improve an applicant's chances of acceptance. Okay, so what else does the GRE score actually, cater to? Of course, a high GRE score again can also enhance the candidate's eligibility for scholarships as well. So even for scholarships, GRE scores are very important. So um, it is mandatory. If you are looking at many of the colleges in US, you can still say that some of the colleges, they still say that GRE is not required, but you're not going to apply it to only a very few colleges. You're going to apply to maybe 4 or 5 colleges. So out of those 4 or 5, some of them may require GRE. So it's always good to get the GRE score. Do the GRE exam and then get the GRE score. Okay, while applying. All right. Now, since we have understood the importance of GRE, now there is another test called GMAT, isn't it? So now the purpose of taking a GRE and GMAT, slightly different, but there is a common purpose as well. I'm sure most of you here are aware that the B schools, the business schools, also accept GRE scores. So almost 1,300 business schools, I'm talking about 1A in US, they accept the GRE score for their MBA programs. Now, so as you all know that GRE majorly for the masters, now, the recent years, they are being accepted for business studies as well. And also for the law, almost about 120 schools, law schools, they are accepting GRE. Anyway, I think most of us here are not, to take the law or something. So we are looking for masters. Maybe a few of you are attending for an MBA as well. All right. Now, if we look at why I should be taking a GRE, of course, for the grad schools and B schools, GMAT is specifically designed for B schools only. Then if we look at the test structure, there's a slight difference. So there is an essay, 30-minute essay in GRE. That would be the first section, followed by 2 verbal sections and 2 quant sections with a duration of 41 minutes and 47 minutes respectively. Whereas in GMAT, there are 3 sections, namely quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and data insights, each of 45-minute duration. The test format, GRE is called a computer adaptive bisection exam, whereas GMAT is called a computer adaptive test. So I would say you should know the difference between these two. So GMAT is a computer adaptive test, which means, if I answer the first question in quant or verbal correctly, then my second question will be harder. And if I do the second one correctly, my third question is going to be harder. Suppose if I make a mistake, then it will be easier. So that is question-wise adaptive, whereas GRE is section-wise adaptive. So after the AWA, there are 2 quant sections and 2 verbal sections. So for instance, if I'm doing the first verbal section, and if I do the first verbal section very badly, then my second verbal section will be easier. So the difficulty level of the second section depends on how I have performed on the first section. This applies to quant as well. Okay, quant to quant. difficulty changes as per your previous, section's response. I'm sure this is clear, right? Okay. Now, how is it scored? Again, GRE has its own measuring scale. Though the AWA is measured on a scale of 0 to 6, the quant and verbal sections are measured on a scale of 130 to 170 in 1 point increment, whereas GMAT is measured on a scale of 205 to 805 overall score. So I'm not getting too much of GMAT because this is primarily a GRE webinar. The cost of taking the GRE is $220 and GMAT is $275 for in-center test and $300 for at home, or they call it GMAT online test. Okay. Now, in a year, how many times I can take GRE? I can take 5 times in a rolling 365 days. And if I attempt a GRE on the 1st of January, when can I attempt my second? You cannot appear on the next day or within a week. So you have to wait for 21 days to reappear for a GRE, just in case if your scores are not that great or not reach the desired score the university is looking for. All right. So testing time for GRE is just under 2 hours. GMAT, as we discussed, there are 3 45-minute sections, so 2 hours and 15 minutes. Okay, now, how long are the scores valid for? In both cases, they're valid for 5 years. Okay. A quick look at the structure of the GRE. Of course, most of it is discussed, but I wanted to just present it in a table of format. So let's quickly go through. Analytical writing section or AWA has 1 essay task. Duration is 30 minutes. And we have a quant section 1. We call this as routing because based on how you perform on the first section, the second section will be easier or harder. All right. So both sections of quant, we've got 27 questions, and both sections of verbal also have got 27 questions, but the duration given for both the quant sections 47 minutes. This is 41 minutes. All right. Okay, now, as I discussed already about the adaptive section, so I'm just reiterating, difficulty level of the second section is dependent on how you performed on the first section. All right. I'm sure the adaptive by section is very clear. Now, let's get into the first section of the GRE, which is the AWA. So what is the structure of the AWA? A structure of AWA is you will obviously get an issue task. Okay, the prompt will be given to you. So you're expected to analyze the issue, present their perspective, and then support with relevant examples. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly, give you some writing tips of AWA. All right. Now, when you're going to start the GRE exam, obviously after reading all the instructions, you will be starting off with the AWA section. So let's look at the writing tips of AWA section. So first, what you have to do is understand the prompt. So when I say understand the prompt, what you have to do is clearly read the issue statement. Okay. Identify the central claim and what is asking you, what it is asking you to evaluate. Okay. Take a clear position. Either you agree or disagree or partially agree. Okay. So take the stand. Okay. Tip number 2, plan before you write. So just after reading the prompt, don't start, writing. Just think of, okay, kind of your brain should start thinking of, some outlines or something. So probably you should spend maybe, 2 to 4 minutes outlining the main points. Probably you should use your scratch paper, which is a very important tool given by ETS. Think of 2 or 3 strong examples within that, 2 to 4 minutes. The examples could be real life, historical, personal, or even hypothetical. Okay, so do this. Now, when you're going to start writing this essay, be clear and coherent. Okay, so use clear language and logical transitions. Stay focused on your argument. Avoid going off topic. It's very, very important. Stick to the, the whatever you are trying to say. Now, of course, you have to support your claims. So back up each main point with specific and relevant examples. Okay. And use varied sentence structures. So some of them have the habit of repeating sentences. So avoid repetitive wording. Show command of language by using a mix of sentence types. Okay, final is again a very important one. If time permits, you have to just go through the essay once, and if there is any grammar fix to be done, please do it. Okay, so these are the major tips that we should follow when we are going to start writing the essay. Now I'm going to also give a recommended format which actually helped me to get better score in AWA. So let's look at the recommended format. So obviously there should be an introduction. So paraphrase the prompt. That's how you introduce this. State your position very clearly. As I said earlier, agree, disagree, partially agree. Okay. Briefly outline 2-3 reasons. Okay. Examples that you'll discuss. Okay. Now comes the body paragraph 1. So if the introduction is about 4 to 5 sentences, the body paragraph 1 should have 6 to 8 sentences. So when it comes to body paragraph 1, again, you state your first reason. So as I said earlier, you have to have reasons to support. Okay. So state the first reason, provide a detailed example or explanation. Okay. And link it back to the main argument. All right. Now, again, body paragraph 2 should be about 6 to 8 sentences. So state your maybe second reason, provide strong example, tie it back to the thesis. All right. Fourth is optional. So if you want to sort of take a counter argument, you can always, just try and present an opposing viewpoint. Okay. Explain why your stance is stronger. Okay. Finally, the conclusion. Conclusion, again, summarize your position, restate the main points, end with broader implication or final insight. So keeping these in mind, you should be able to, write an essay in a proper format. Okay. I'm going to quickly take you through a sample essay. I'm not going to, go word by word, but just that, whatever that we have discussed with respect to the recommended format, I'm going to take you through. So let's say this is the prompt. Technology, while apparent in its advantages, ultimately isolates individuals from real human interactions. Write a response in which you discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with the statement and explain your reasoning. So obviously, as I said earlier, just take some time, come up with the introduction. Okay. So probably it's just the paraphrasing, okay, of what's given in the prompt. That's in the introduction. So body paragraph 1, as you can see, they're giving some reasons. So technology positive impact on human connection, especially, I've tied up the examples to during the COVID-19 pandemic, people were connected through Zoom and other ways and means of technology. So I've given that example. So body paragraph 2, furthermore, I have made sure that, I've given another reason, okay, examples. So on body paragraph 3, though I kind of give a counter argument such as, excessive use of technology, obviously, such as compulsive social media scrolling can lead to superficial interactions. However, this is nothing when you compare to the technology itself. So with proper digital etiquette, I think this can be minimized. Okay, that's the paragraph 3, and finally the conclusion. Conclusion, again, you can see that rather than fearing it, we should focus on using it with intention and care. So obviously, I'm sure you understood how this essay has been, designed and how it has been presented. So we should be, writing essays with various topics. So once you get used to that, scoring a 4.5 and above is not going to be really a big task. All right. So having said that, we've got to understand how an AWA sample essay we have just seen, how to write an AWA, issue essay particularly. Now let's get into the quant and verbal reasoning. So when it comes to quant and verbal reasoning, I always say the 4 golden rules. So when I say 4 golden rules, you have to use them in your GRE, even when you're practicing at home. Okay, it is very important. So let's look at it. So some of them you already know. So I'm going to start off with take the easy test. So when I say take the easy test, it's just that, our parents and grandparents used to say, before we are getting ready for an exam, they would say like, okay, now, first of all, you should, answer all the questions that you know. Then you go for the harder ones. That's exactly what we are also trying to say. So good thing is within a section, you can move around. Okay. At the same time, each question carries the same weightage. Okay. So instead of, getting ourselves into, solving harder questions, why don't we just go for easy bets, complete all the easy questions, then, probably give your time for the harder ones towards the end. All right. This is what, in terms of take the easy test, all about. Now, the second one is scratch paper. One of the genuinely few helpful tools ETS gives you is the scratch paper. So, as I said, it helps for AWA. Obviously, you will all be using it for the math. What about verbal? Why do you want to give it a stepmotherly treatment? So even for verbal, you should be, using the verbal. You have to set up your paper. Okay? Maybe you write down the answer choices. Then you help with process of elimination. If 2 answers are left, then, take a guess, all that. So scratch paper helps. Especially scratch paper will be even more helpful when you are coming back after answering a bunch of questions. You want to come back to a particular question, where exactly, am I there? Okay, so it helps a lot. So scratch paper is a genuinely useful tool that is being given for GRE test. Okay. Again, in math, I've also noticed, students, even in the classroom, they prefer to do a lot of calculation in head. Okay, of course, during the class, you are at easy state. Okay, you're comfortable sitting with a teacher, sitting with a bunch of students, and it's the environment is definitely different. Okay, but when you are in a testing center, in your cubicle, attempting a quant section, you'll be, taking a time constraint test. You don't have all the time in the world to take the test, isn't it? So at that point of time, taking more of, mental calculation would actually make your brain drain. Okay. So the scratch paper must be used for all the sections in GRE. Okay. The third one is the mark button. Of course, again, when I talk about mark button on the GRE test, you will be seeing a flagging option. So that's what we call mark button. So one thing all of you would agree with me is reading or calculation errors on a time constraint test are unavoidable. Okay. Now, the problem is, sometimes people are in a hurry and they do not read the question before they answer. So typically, almost every question in GRE, those answer choices out of the 5 choices, only one is the right answer. So other 4 could be like mines for you. I mean, the traps. Okay. So unless you read the question carefully, you're going to get into trouble. Okay. And I've also seen some of our students, having that ego because I'm from the engineering background. So who is ATS to test my math skills? I will get this particular question correct and then move on to the next one. I mean, ETS is not going to lose, of course. You're going to lose your time, of course. The overall, the confidence would go off because if you keep, working on the very same question and your time is going to run out. Okay. So make sure that if you get into a brick wall, or we call it as a quicksand, so where, you know, you're not able to get an answer to a question. Okay. So, which means you have to just get out of it. Okay. You can't just keep sitting on the very same question, spending more and more time. It's not worth it at all. Okay. Immediately, what you have to do is you have to switch, maybe do 2 or 3 questions and then come back. Maybe you look at it fresh eyes, you might be able to get it right. Okay. So, it is very important that, you should probably flag that particular question because you've started working on that question because that topic is a known topic for you. Maybe your favorite is algebra. That's an algebra question. Okay, so probably you should. I mean, you've tried it. You are nowhere close to the answer. So what you have to do is you will obviously come back and do it. So, for example, if there is a particular topic which I'm not prepared or I'm not too good at it, and if that particular question comes up, obviously, you have nothing to lose. You just have to guess and move because you have not prepared at all. All right. So you cannot start thinking of, okay, I'm not getting any of the answers matching to my answer. So can ATS make any mistakes? No way, because they have a very strong scanning system. Okay. Every question before it comes to the GRE test, they have some 10 levels of scanning. So they do that before these questions come. All right. Okay, so I'm sure you must have understood the importance of the mark button. It's basically you'll have to, when you get stuck, I mean, just move out of it. You're not married to this question. Come back a little later, all right? Okay, so now comes another important one, which is kind of, tied to the third point, which is the mark button. So pacing and mark button, they are like hand in hand, works hand in hand. So again, when I talk about pacing, speed kills on GRE. Many of students have seen that, they rush. There is absolutely no point in rushing unless you've not planned yourself. Okay, so as I said earlier, the ETS actually has got a group of people working for them. We call them psychoanalysts. The job of the psychoanalyst is come up with those trap answers. Okay, so if you are in a rush, there is obviously, chances you might get, questions wrong. So please slow down. That's very important. Of course, when time is going to tick towards the end, if you're left with a couple of maybe questions unanswered, probably take an estimated guess and, do the POE and move on. Okay. So I know that accuracy is everything. So start slowly and then pick up the speed. That's more important. Okay. So those are the 4 golden rules. Now I'm going to quickly dive into a type of question in verbal, which is called sentence equivalence question. All right. The format of the question is you will have a question with single blank. Okay. And there are 6 answers, that will be given for you. Okay. So your job is to pick 2 words or 2 answers that actually going to produce the same meaning. Okay. So we're not going to look at a question, rather we are going to look at what are the tips I should keep in my mind. All right. So let's look at the key strategies. Focus on the sentence meaning, not just the blank. Okay, so many of the students, again, they would be just revolving around only the blank. Okay, just try to understand, avoid choosing words solely based on the grammatical fit or surface meaning. Consider what the sentence is trying to say and how the blank contributes to the meaning. Okay. Read the full sentence and identify the overall tone and the logic. The tone could be positive, negative, neutral, ironic. Okay, you'll have to figure out. Now, the second tip is predict the word before looking at choices. All right. So you always have to come up with your own word. This is very important again, because if you start looking at the answers, then you will either go mad or you will be completely lost. Okay. So after reading the question, after you've understood the context of the sentence, probably you should come up with your own word. It's very important, because if you go and look at the answer choices, you will easily get distracted, especially by the top answers. Remember the psychoanalyst I was talking about. So the word that you come up with, your prediction need not be a perfect word. It could be even, okay, maybe something negative, okay? Maybe a compliment, okay? So even that would help, okay? This anchors you thinking that you're evaluating choices against a sentence, not against each other. That's more important, okay? Look for clue words or contrast indicators. Of course, I think if you have taken a few tests, you could have understood that these indicators are very, very important, like although, but, despite. Of course, these are some of them. Would really help in which direction, the sentences, following. All right. Now, almost the final stage, two synonyms that fit the same sentence meaning. So the two correct answers must be synonymous with the specific context. Both the words must fit logically and grammatically into the sentence. Even if multiple words make sense, only the synonym pair that preserves the meaning. Okay, so think in pairs. That's very, very important. Finally, I've been, warning almost several times, be wary of trap answers. It is often include words that fit grammatically but not contextually. Please understand this. You might fall for trap, okay? So this is where I said, do not rush. You have ample amount of time, so work on the questions. At least, do the easy ones, spending adequate amount of time. Rushing is not going to be favor at all. Okay. Right. So just a couple of points on practice focus. Obviously, you should learn through context-specific meanings. At the same time, practice eliminating the non-synonymous options. Now that we have seen tips for a sentence equivalence question, as I said earlier, sentence equivalence question will have a single blank with 6 answer choices. We have to choose 2 out of the 6. Now, I'm actually going to take you through one text completion question with a single blank. So a text completion question with a single blank will have 5 answer choices. We have to choose 1 answer choice. Okay. So let's look at the approach would more or less be same, except that we will not be choosing 2 answers. Right. Okay. Now let's look at this question. Upon visiting the Middle East in 1850, Gustav Flaubert was so blank belly dancing that he wrote in a letter to his mother that the dances alone made his trip worthwhile. Okay, now remember, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to look at the answer choices? No. What we have to do is look for our own word. Okay, probably here, if you look at it, I mean, are we looking for a positive word, negative word? Can you come up with some words? Of course, it looks more or less positive. So enjoyed. Gustav really enjoyed the belly dancing, or deeply impressed with the belly dancing, isn't it? So now we're looking for a word that conveys a strong admiration or affection. There is no surprise or confusion with respect to the word that we are looking for. Okay. Now let's take a quick look at all the answer choices. So these are the 5 of them. Now let's analyze one by one. All right. So overwhelmed by. Of course, this can be emotional, but in both directions, positive or negative. So if you want to keep, okay, fine. Let's check the second one. Enamored by. So enamor, I'm sure everybody knows the meaning. It means deeply in love or enchanted by. Perfect fit for this, situation. So I'm going to, hold on to that, which means compared to B, A is not the best answer. So I'm going to eliminate A. But let me quickly check, C, D, E. Of course, more or less we have, cornered the answer. But let's have a quick look at C is taken aback. Obviously, it's like a surprise, isn't it? So it doesn't match with the positive tone. And let's look at D, besieged by. So definitely, or I would say like grammatically or logically incorrect, because the meaning of the word is kind of begged or implored, isn't it? So I'm going to kick this off. And finally, we have flustered by. Again, some of you may not have come across this particular word. So this means confused or agitated. Again, doesn't fit the bill. So this goes off B. So now, so I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure overwhelmed, enamored, taken aback. Those are words that you're probably, you might have seen or at least used in your real life. I'm not sure of the D and E. So it is time for us to understand and think about how am I going to improve my vocabulary. Okay. So there are many ways to, uh, prepare prepare a lot of GRE words that are going to be, seen in the actual GRE test. So a few ways I'm not going to take so much of time. So just a few ways quickly I'm going to take you through. So some of the ways to learn vocabulary is you can see the root words, prefixes and suffixes. They would help you to easily decode, unfamiliar words. Let's say if you see a BENE as a prefix, benevolent, benefactor. So they're all like, meaning good. Similarly, mal is a bad word. So malicious, benevolent, malady, okay, malice, all these are, like negative words, okay, bad. Omni is omniscient, omnivorous, omnipotent. So it's all going to say like it represents all. Omnipresent is somebody is present everywhere. Okay. Omnipotent is a person who has all the power. Okay. So all is the word that you can always remember. So there are other ways, as I said, mnemonics is one way of, memorizing words. So you always have to associate sometimes with some funny, vivid, clues. So here, abate, if you pronounce abate, it's kind of a bait. Okay. So which is like a bait reduces the number of rats. So abate means to reduce. So this is how you can associate words, So for example, the second one is enervate. Enervate is like energy. Weight is like, think of evaporate, goes off, energy, So it's basically weakening, to weaken. All right. Of course, the third one is a very important one. You have to read articles. So, I mean, a very good article will have a lot of GRE words stacked into it. So it is a excellent way of improving vocabulary. Okay. So there's one example. I'm sure by now most of you would have come across this word. So here, even if I don't know the meaning of this word, but the moment I read the entire sentence, I should be able to sort of come up with whether it's positive, negative, all that stuff. This laconic speech left the audience puzzled. So obviously, this is not a positive tone, isn't it? So the speech was not so great. Okay. So probably, the actual meaning is like he has given a speech with using few words. All right. So, I mean, these are very few ways. So, in future, we are planning to have seminars separately for vocabulary, maybe for reading comprehension. All that will be, doing it. But since there is a time constraint, so we have to. So, um, I think I'll have to just quickly go through this because we are running out of time. So when it comes to quant, of course, uh, you always have to master the basics. When I say basics, dealing with numbers, an algebra, when I say numbers, fractions, percentages, ratios, and algebraic manipulations, you should be able to, if the words are given, you should be able to write an equation or some expression or vice versa. Okay, all that you should be good at with. And then you should also know what is not tested, which I discussed earlier. Like, for example, calculus, trigonometry, they are never tested. So mostly the high school math, but tested in tricky ways. Okay. Now, some of the strategies that would really help, you to, for the accuracy, they are when you come across algebra questions with variables, plug in numbers, that will make math easy. And when you're dealing with large numbers, of course, you prime factorize them using the rules of divisibility. That would also help. For data interpretation, you always have to skim the graph of the table first, then go to the question. That would help a lot. But since you're going to deal with very large numbers in millions and thousands, it's always good to, estimate if possible, avoid calculation traps. For geometry questions, always have the basic formulas in hand. And if there are any complex figures, you should always be able to break the complex figures into simpler ones. All right. If there are no diagrams, obviously you have to, draw the diagrams of the scratch paper and then work out to avoid the traps. So probability permutations, always, there would be like questions dealing with at least, question dealing with, and or rule. So all that you'll have to, and is like multiplication or is the addition, those roles you have to be. So finally, process of elimination is the key for you to just, not keep looking at the question again and again. Rather, you just get out of it. I mean, if you're able to eliminate 2 or 3 out of the 5 choices, still you have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Okay. A quick question on the quant. I think, so again, I've tested this particular question. I would say like 60% of the students have gone wrong. 60%. This includes students from engineering background as well. So because the reason is, rush. Okay. So the moment they look at the ratio of A to B is 1:3, and the ratio of B to C is 15:4, immediately their mind thinks that, okay, so B is common. So if I make B 15, then I will be able to calculate the value of A. Okay, now 1:3, it will be a 5:15. So A is 5 and C is 4. Bingo, I got my answer. Quantity A is greater than C. Is it right? No. This is why I said do not rush. What did we miss? Okay, where in the question they have mentioned A and B are positive? They have not mentioned. So obviously you should try some negative numbers. So here is the working. So if A is greater than C, with the first example that we took, A5 and C4, obviously we can eliminate the choices B and C because A is greater. But as I said earlier, you should try with negative numbers as well. So if I'm going to try B to be negative 15, then A becomes negative 5 and C becomes negative 4, which means now C is greater. So A is out. My answer is D. So it's very important. You should not be rushing, okay? Because you have put in a lot of efforts. You might have taken like 8 to 10 tests. You would have practiced hundreds of drills. So everything should not go in waste. So you have to slow down, and just because the question looks easy doesn't mean that it is actually easy. Though it would be easy, but only thing we are missing out on something. So you always keep on that. Okay. All right. Some practice strategy quickly. Daily practice is required. For example, if you are planning to take the GRE in the next 2 months, okay. So ideally, some of you would be looking for admissions, start applying for the admissions for the 2026 now. So it's the time within 2 months you should be able to, take the actual test and present your scores to the university. So which means daily practice is required if 2 months is left. Otherwise, nothing is going to help you to get a desirable score. Okay. So daily practice, 15 to 20 questions. If you're practicing quant today, then verbal should be following day. Once in a week, you should also be practicing some essays. Okay. Okay. Next comes when you're practicing drills or tests, you should always review. Okay. Have an error log. Find out, what are the mistakes that I've done, and see how I will not do it again. Okay. So weekly, you should be taking full-time quant, which is like mixed bag. Instead of practicing topic-wise drills, probably, weekly you should be practicing a mixed bag, maybe ratios, percentages together, or any other, sentence equivalents and, text completion questions together. You should be, working in mixed bags as well. Okay. Of course, data interpretation, don't give it loose. Okay. You will have to, because in both the quant sections, you will see the data interpretation. Of course, as I said earlier, GRE vocabulary is tested in 50% of the GRE section. So you should be practicing, keep, yourself maybe 5 to 10 words a day. Okay. And how you can, nowadays you guys have access to the chat GPT. So with a word, probably you can just say a flabbergasted word, and you can ask chat GPT to, can you prepare a sentence equivalence question based on this, and maybe another choice. Okay. It would give you. So with word, you should be able to, get the questions through chat GPT and then learn it also. Okay. Of course, ChatGPT has told, you must have seen, so not everything is like perfect. So it's always good to have sessions with us, okay, in the sense, proper ETS books and our coaching centers would be always the best, because we give the complete test, we give tests. All these are research. Our R&D team has been working years and years. We take the test, we give the feedback. So based on that, everything is developed. Okay. So quick, learning, if you're in the basic level, you can always use the chat GPT to some extent, right? Of course, as I said, technology, let's make use of it in a positive way. Okay. Right, test has to be practiced at least, twice a month. As I said, if you are having just 2 months for the actual test, obviously you should be practicing 2 tests a month, which would help you to take 4 to 5 tests within 2 months' time. All right. Okay, study resources. As I said earlier, ATS official guide, ATS power prep tests. Those are the test makers materials. Of course, we at the, IMS Manya, we have the Princeton Review, tie up with the Princeton Review. So our manual is the Bible, and students have always appreciated us. Our techniques have worked in the actual exams. So you can look at our websites, IMS website, Manya website. You might see, some of the testimonials that would speak. Of course, our portal has got 8 full-length tests and 650 drills. So this is like more than enough for any student to crack GRE and get a 320 plus for sure. There is no doubt about it. I wish you all the best in your GRE preparation and your admissions to your desired school. Okay. Thank you so much from IMS and Manya, the Princeton Review.